today at steptember.org.au.
Now on 2CC, it's back to stimulating talk, opinions and inspiring stories for the weekend. The City News Sunday Roast, 12:06.
2CC.
It's 6 minutes past 9. Good to be with you. Ian Meikle in the studio, of course, as always, with the City News Sunday Roast through until 12 o'clock. We've got some really interesting guests to talk about.
We have.
Yeah. Superb parrots. We made a little brief mention of them before, but superb parrots. By
You mean
mistake.
it's Talk Like a Parrot Day?
Yes. Superb parrots are the most exquisite birds. So says Neil Hermes. Neil is a sort of
Ornithologist.
That one too.
Isn't it?
Yeah. These things, that they fly like darts in the air. They have a fabulous call, but they're highly endangered and they're very picky about the hollows they nest in. The superb parrot, found in the Murrumbidgee and Riverina regions and parts of the ACT, nests in large hollows of trees, and they're sort of fighting extinction. Let's find out more about this incredible bird. Neil Hermes is with us on the line. G'day, Neil.
G'day, Ian. How you going?
No, I'm Rod. You can call him.
I'm Ian.
Sorry.
That's
sorry.
all right.
There's Ian and Rod. Sorry.
I'm flattered, but he's
Sorry,
not.
guys.
I'm the handsome
The
one.
trouble with COVID and not being together, you can't see who's...
I know. Hey, Neil, what is it about you and birds?
Well, it started when I was 12, so, you know, that's how it happens. I've just been a bird person all my life.
Well, what's the... I'm looking at Henshaw here, and he's confirming that he's been a bird person since about 12, but not in, not in the way you're an. What are you? You're an
Ornithologist.
Everyone has trouble with this word, ornithology. So it's the word for Latin and Greek for bird. Ornitho is bird, and ology means studying something.
I can usually say it. I'm just asleep at the moment.
Yeah, that's okay. Ornithology is good, but birder is okay as well.
A birder.
A birder.
Well, but what was the fascination with birder, being a birder? What
Look, it's people often ask me this question, and you know, the answer to it is that as a young kid, just you know, being inquisitive about the world. Birds were all. I grew up in Canberra back in the day when it was 50,000 people, and we were you know 2 minutes out into the bush in any direction, and my mum would say, you know, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, be back by dark. Yeah. You just go off into the bush and explore. And whenever you explored in the bush, birds were all around you. And for some reason, they just took my interest. And when I was at primary school, at Hughes Primary School, I borrowed a book from the library, and I was open to this huge new world where I could read about things in books about what I could see in the wild. And I made the connection. And basically, birds are all around you wherever you go. And it's just been something that has been a fascination for me for all of my life.
Do you look at overseas birds, or are you just primarily the Canberra region birds? If you go on holiday, do you go bird watching on your holiday?
Put it this way, I'd rarely go to a holiday resort as a place to sit on a beach and read a book. If I'm on holidays, it's about getting in. And look, the thing about birds is that they're in fascinating places. My wife and I, a couple of years ago before COVID, we visited an island called St Kilda, which is in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland, which is the most fascinating place from a human point of view, but also from a bird point of view. So, yes, there's lots of places in the world I visited, and I've had a fascinating bird experience when I've been there.
So I take it your wife shares this passion for ornithology, does she?
I wouldn't say she shares a passion for ornithology.
I was wondering.
That was a trick question.
So do you ever go on holidays by yourself?
No, well, occasionally. No, look, the thing is, when you go to an interesting place, you know, you can go bird watching and you can share the time in a place. You go bird watching overseas to a place like, I don't know, the Camargue in France, in southern France. I mean, my wife is happy to go to the south of France for a holiday. I'm happy to go to south of France. We might just do different things when we're there. So
she goes for the wine and cheese. You go for the birds. I don't know what's wrong with that.
I go for the flamingos. Yeah, that's right.
But now, what's the point of bird watching?
I think the point of bird watching is it's a way of connecting to the natural world. Now, we all have our own ways of doing that. Now, for some people, it might be just a place to have a quiet walk and just be re-stimulated and reinvigorated by a walk in the country. For others, it might be orienteering. It might be, pacing yourself through, bushland or whatever. For others, it might be, a sporting activity in a wild place, canoeing or rock climbing or something like that. But I think it all comes back to that sort of a connection to wild places and places away from cities. And part of it is a sort of emotional thing. Part of it is a recreation, a recreation thing where you just feel good about being out there. But there's no doubt that the sort of bird watching in itself has a level of sort of science and technology about science and inquiring about the science of it all as well. So, I think it combines a range of things for different people, and at different times in your life, different things might. You might be mad keen about photography of birds at a certain stage, or other times it's just watching some birds on a feeder in your garden.
But is that how your passion manifests itself? Is it photographing rare birds?
Look, I photograph birds. I do that. I also keep lists of things I see. I also write articles about scientific and non-scientific articles about things I see. I like to share bird watching with. I get a lot of joy. I get approached by people that say, "Look, my son's interested, my daughter's interested in bird watching. Can you show them how to use a pair of binoculars or something?" And what is that bird on the lawn? Can you help them get an entree to what they're already interested and they'd like to get a bit of guidance. So you get pleasure from sort of an educational activity. There's lots of different manifestations of how you might experience, what we generally call, bird watching generally.
Do we as a community, do we take birds for granted?
I think in Canberra we don't necessarily. I think Canberra has a fairly high level of appreciation of the natural environment, and I think that comes partly. Well, it's cause and effect. Many people who live in Canberra like it because of the suburban nature of the city and the garden nature of the city, which necessarily means the birds you have around you. So if you want to live in a high-rise, complex in the middle of Sydney, you're not going to get the birds you'll get in the backyard in Woden or Tuggeranong. So I think it's a bit of a self-selecting group of people. People love having gardens full of parrots and live in suburban Canberra.
So, Neil, what do we have to do to save these poor old superb parrots?
Let's save that. We have a whole... I want to really focus on that.
I forgot it's your program. I forgot it's all about you.
No, I want to get...
Stop arguing with one another.
Well, I know we're going to stop for a break in a moment, and I really want to have a nice big talk about the superb parrot in particular. But going back to the gardens and things, how has the bird life of Canberra changed? You mentioned earlier you grew up in Canberra when it was 50,000 people. How has it changed over that time as we become more urbanised?
Well, it's got better. It's got better. The city has become a more interesting place for birds over the years. Back 50 years ago, we didn't have the lake. We didn't have the sort of wetlands that we now do through all the suburban areas, particularly in places like Gungahlin, where the wetlands are amazing. We didn't have the mature tree. Back in those days, everyone got 10 free trees and 40 shrubs to put in their gardens. These trees are all mature trees now. So what was certainly a bush city back in those days, and you could get out into the countryside. A lot of it was farmland around the city. Yeah. And now we have essentially Canberra's become a habitat in itself. We have every the numbers of species that we have in the average Canberra garden. You can see 100 species of birds over a period. Wow, really? So it's I've seen 50 species of birds in my Woden garden since July in the records that I've been keeping. So it's a very rich place for birds, and it's got better because of the plantings we've done, of the wetlands that we've put in. The Botanic Gardens is a very good example. The wet gully there at the Botanic Gardens, which wasn't there back in the 60s, that now attracts rainforest birds from the coast to Canberra. Wow. So Canberra is a wonderful place to be a bird watcher.
Now, we've reached the superb parrot moment where we definitely need you. And I think
okay. All right.
Superb parrots definitely need you too.
But why are they superb and why are they exquisite?
Well, they're superb and exquisite. They are spectacular parrot. I mean, we're talking about, birds in Canberra before. We have masses of beautiful parrots, and people, maybe they do get a bit blasé about the parrots we have, but in our gardens, if you're an average birder in the UK and you've got, small bush birds that come into your garden, they're nothing like the spectacular parrots we have. And the superb parrot really is one of those amazing birds. It's the male is just to quickly describe it, the male is an emerald green colour generally, but he's got a spectacular yellow throat with a red bib around the edge, a yellow head, bright yellow bill. But one of the things about them is they're very long and sleek. So when they fly through the air, they have this sort of arrow-like look. So they have this really spectacular appearance as they're flying through the trees. And fortunately, we have them in Canberra. We have, quite a number of, particularly in the north around Gungahlin, there's a number of nesting colonies up there. And they are now seen more and more in southern Canberra and now into Tuggeranong as well in recent years.
Are they in trouble?
They are well, look, there's probably about 10,000 in the wild, and they have been severely threatened in the past. They were heavily caught for aviculture back, a couple of decades ago. Sadly they get run over on the sides of roads. They occur out into the sort of southwest slopes from Canberra, towards places like Cootamundra, Gundagai, down to Albury, up to Bathurst and Orange. And they come in through Yass and through Murrumbateman and particularly in the northern areas of Canberra. They do get run over on the roads. Where wheat is being carted and seed gets dropped on the edge of the roads, they'll congregate and then they get run over. But probably the most severe threat that they've had is over the years in rural landscapes, the particular trees that they need for nesting have been selectively cleared out either for firewood or as part of agricultural activities. And we would appear to have a shortage of suitable hollows for them at the moment in the general landscape.
Why do they need a hollow? What's the go with a hollow?
Well, different species have different preferences for where they'll nest, and so superb parrots nest in these hollows in very old, mature eucalypts, typically yellow box and that sort of thing. Many species of parrots, like white cockatoos, which we have commonly around town, or galahs, they're fairly ubiquitous in terms of where they'll nest. If it's a hollow in a tree, of a certain height, certain space, they'll use it. But it turns out that superb parrots are much more picky about the sort of hole that they'll use. It has to be narrow at the top. It has to be a certain depth. And it turns out that the sorts of hollows that they like in trees are rare in the landscape generally, and tend to be in trees that older trees that tend to get cleared for firewood, etc. So they're particularly vulnerable because of that reason.
Because they stay in the same tree or the same hollow for many, many years, don't they?
Many years. And the other curious thing about them is that they'll often nest in groups. So you'll have a couple of trees in the one place, and you'll have a small colony of them nesting. This is unlike other parrots. They tend to be solitary when they're nesting. But superb parrots like to have 3 or 4 or 5 other pairs in the immediate vicinity. And so there's you need a certain number of suitable trees in a certain place as well. So that makes it even more difficult for them.
What about the bushfires? I mean, did that pose... we know how much flora and fauna were threatened and also demolished.
Lost to
the bushfires. I guess this poor little parrot might have been in amongst that lot too, wouldn't he?
Sure. Perhaps that's not as big a threat because they're open country birds, so that they're not caught in those great, massive fire storms that we get. They probably could survive, but they're very fast flying, and many of them would probably survive a grass fire in a rural setting because they're not in big thick forests. It'd be a factor in terms of some of the trees that they would nest in being burnt in fire. But I think probably fire is not as big an issue as the clearing of particular large old trees is now.
Okay, we've had a couple of people ring in, Neil, and you can answer this question. Iris wants to know why she doesn't hear the blackbird in Canberra as often as she used to. Has it gone? Or is it in decline for any reason?
No, blackbirds, of course, are an exotic bird introduced from the UK. We do get them. They're a common bird in Canberra. They have perhaps declined a little in numbers in some parts of the city, but I certainly still have blackbirds in my garden in Woden. I think they go through slightly. Look, they're still common, and I'm not aware of any particular decline in blackbirds. But given that they're an exotic species, we're not. Generally speaking, it's not a bird that we're so concerned about in Canberra.
Yeah, we've got another caller from Charnwood Ron, who says that anyone wanting to know more about birds in Canberra, the Birds of Canberra Gardens book is a good place to look. You probably wrote that, did you?
Well, I've contributed to it, and I've written a book on the birds of Canberra and the high country. So there are a number of good books available. I'll put in a plug for my new book, which will be coming out next month, which is Birds of Canberra, which is a photographic guide to birds of Canberra. But there are a number of places you can get to, and of course the Bird Club, the Canberra Birds, there's a website where you can go to see some spectacular pictures of superb parrots. So there's a range of resources available to people, and I now have my own website, which has got information on it, which is the Neil Hermes website. So there's a range of places that people can get more information about this beautiful bird and our other beautiful bird.
I have your beautiful book, which is Birds of the Australian High Country. In it, the beautiful illustrations, and you described perfectly the superb parrot. You are just reading the text on the superb parrot, which I did a little earlier. You said endangered species legislation and a major effort, especially by land care groups, have largely arrested the decline. So beyond your own efforts, and I know you've been you designed a nesting box, which you've been putting up trees in Cootamundra. There's also the land care efforts. So there's a lot of people working hard to get the parrot back to numbers that are more sustainable.
That's right, and thanks for mentioning that, Rod. The work.
He's Ian.
Sorry, guys.
He's Ian and I'm not.
Well, I know I'm Neil. There you go. So I've done some work down on my brother's property down at south of Cootamundra at Bathungra. He found a colony of superb parrots nesting down there, and he's been a land care person all his life on rural properties. And there has been a lot of effort put in, but the problem was protecting trees and then replanting trees. Of course, with these really old trees, you've got a 100-year cycle for this. So if trees have been removed, the trees we're now planting aren't going to be available for these birds for another 100 years. So whilst we may have arrested some of the decline by, stopping the trapping, reducing the numbers of deaths on the side of the road and reducing the amount of trees being cleared in some places, there are still trees being cleared. Landholders are putting back trees in some places, but now there's this sort of shortage potentially of nest sites, which is where the activity of my brother and I comes in, and we're trying. It's a stop. Nest boxes are, not a permanent solution for these things, and often aren't a solution at all in some circumstances. But for the superb parrots, if we can work out a way of getting a box into a tree where they'll nest over the next couple of decades, whilst these new trees are being established, that will just give them a lifeline.
Okay, well, just in finality, if you like, just in conclusion, I've got to ask you, Neil, I thought you would have been more interested in a sort of career in law, or certainly an interest in law, because what is not necessarily known from a lot of people is that Neil is the son of a very distinguished legal person in Canberra. A jurist, yes, Clary Hermes.
That's right. Well, Dad was never a person who encouraged us to do things that we. My father's philosophy was you did in life the things that you were passionate about, and he was passionate about the law, and he's very proud of the fact that his 4 sons were all passionate about something, and that we went on and made lives around those things. So,
any of you go into the law at all?
No, none of us. I have a brother who's an archaeologist, another one who's a farmer, and another one who was a linguist in the army.
God, Christmas dinner must have been good.
We absolutely. We used to have a lot of very interesting discussions, and all of our politics isn't the same either. So the lively banters that we used to have were great. No, but Dad would have been proud of the fact that we were. It was about the passion that he was concerned about, not necessarily the interest. So he would have been pleased with the work that my brother and I are doing together, for example, on his property at Cootamundra.
Years ago, I knew him as as his worship. Did he become his honour?
He was chief magistrate in the
magistrate,
ACC.
yes. He didn't go on to become judge.
No, he was chief magistrate when he retired, and I didn't have to call him Your Honour, but we were very respectful of him.
I did, but it was socially.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
I
a long time ago.
I don't think we need to go into any of those details about encounters with my father in various professional activities.
No, it was very, very pleasant. It was a very pleasant meeting. It was social, but it was a long, long time ago. It was back in the 60s. All right, we'll leave it there, buddy. But
thank you, Neil.
Terrific to talk.
No problem. Well, if people want to check out my new book when it comes out, or have a look at my website, Neil Hermes, or look at the YouTube stuff, all that's now being put up online, so people can follow it there.
Would you like to give us your address so we can send the bill?
Yes, and of course, City News ran a story about the superb parrots last week, so it's available on the City News website as well.
Great stuff.
So thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Got to leave it there because time does fly.
Oh, very good, very good.
Thanks, Neil. Neil Hermes.
Cheers.
Bye.